Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're joining us. Welcome to the Power Platform Today show. I have got with me a wonderful, I was going to say giant of a man, but I'll let him introduce himself more. But Nick Doelman is going to join me today, and so here he is. Good afternoon, Nick. How are you? Please introduce yourself
Good
to the world.
good evening, Reese. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little off it, to be honest. I'm a little bit on the tired side, so that was one of the worst intros I think I've had. So apologies.
No worries.
Oh,
Let's see if I
jeez.
can fix that up for you. I mean, I think a lot of people know me already, but if you don't, my name's Nick Doelman. I'm an MVP. I'm based in Canada. I do spend a lot of time in Europe. If people have noticed, I actually just got back Sunday from I think about a 10-day trip.
Hmm.
Been an MVP since 2017, and then I spent 2 years at Microsoft, so was kind of out of the program, back into the program. Been working with a Power Platform. I tell people since the early 2000s, from Dynamics CRM version 1, and even before that, if you count Great Plains as the part of the Business Solutions family. It's kind of the old uncle that I think is slowly dying, and everybody kind of is surprised he's still alive. And
Wait, he
and
is
then
still
yeah,
alive? What?
yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
I am surprised by that.
oh, you know accountants, right? Like accountants, like why would you change? And the thing is, if it's spitting out PL statements and profit and like it does AR AP, why would you change, right? Um,
I
so
mean, yeah. So yeah, I've been working with the ERP side of the business for a few years, so I've definitely come across a bit of that.
yep. And then yeah, and then people also know I think for fun, I'm also a competitive powerlifter. I compete for Team Canada in the Masters division, aka the old guys. And currently training right now. I'm 3 weeks out to the World Master Championships. They're going to be held in South Africa.
Nice.
So as long as everything touch wood and I don't break anything, I'm going to be competing there in a few weeks.
I want to start there. I know this is all about Power Platform community, but I know that you're a strong man. You do this. You have been doing this for a while. I see lots of posts on LinkedIn about it, and I've wanted to speak to you about it for a while, to be honest. But the how does it fit with the travel? Because I know that you do travel to Europe and other
Yes.
conferences. So how does the training fit with that? I can't imagine brilliantly.
Very, very poorly, to be honest. But this past, I've been trying to get back more in the habit, especially if there is a competition coming up or something.
Hmm.
If I'm way out of competition, then it's less of an issue. But more and more, I've been kind of scoping out gyms and stuff before I travel or during while I
Right.
travel. This past stretch, it was started off. It was a pretty intense. So I started off in Finland, and there was Collab Days Finland, full day, and then the next day we flew out to Poland for Baltic Summit and kind of falling into that. And there in Poland, it was sort of like that was after that was done on the Saturday. I was like, okay, now I need to find a place to work out. So I was trying to scope out some gyms and ended up finding this was interesting. I found in a park a kind of outdoor gym
Hmm.
where you can kind of slide the weights around. So it wasn't exactly what I normally would train on, but it did it in a pinch. I had a really good workout, got into a really interesting conversation with this elderly Polish gentleman, I think goes there every day and kind of goes on his bike and stays fit. He was 70 years old and he looked pretty fit, so it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Um, and then yeah, you just try to find sometimes, most hotel gyms like they'll have a kettlebell and a big bouncy ball and that's it. Uh, but then when I was like traveling last week, I was in the UK in London. I found a gym close by the hotel. That was for when I was there for Experts Live UK,
Hmm.
and it was perfect. Had everything, had calibrated plates and like competition stuff, and it was just like oh, it was like heavens opened with this ray of sunshine. So I was able to kind of do a good training session there. And then when I was in Sweden for Nordic Summit, the hotel gym surprisingly had a full squat rack and enough weights that I could do something with that.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because the gym and part of that hotel was part of a spa, and there was a personal trainer in there, another guy training someone else. And then as I was walking out, he's going, "Oh, you're lifting quite a bit of weight." And I kind of laughed. I said, "I lifted all the weight you had." Like I went around and put it all together. It was good. So Long story short, yeah, training while traveling is very
Mm.
hard. A couple of reasons. I'm trying to carry everything. Powerlifting is one of those things where you do have a bit of equipment. You do need specialized equipment,
Yeah.
and it's not the same as going for a run or going for a swim, which
Yeah.
probably would have been a smarter sport for traveling. Um, and it has affected me in the past, like last year when I was traveling quite a bit. It definitely there was a couple events that I like, okay, this really did affect where I should be.
Mm.
This time around, I think I've been keeping my training relatively consistent. And this morning I went to like my home gym and everything, and everything's feeling good. So yeah, touch wood, as long as we can kind of keep that consistency going, which right now I'm not traveling far. I think a day trip to Toronto or something until I actually fly out to South Africa. So yeah. Um, so yeah, if I wasn't traveling so much, I probably my numbers would be a little bit higher, but
Hmm.
it is what it is.
That's just, so South Africa for the competition. Then, how far in advance would you travel out? Because you'll have to acclimatize because it's a totally different climate to where you are at the moment. And how
Yeah,
much does that
so
impact you?
huge. So I'll actually arrive on the Friday and I'll be lifting on the Monday,
Okay.
which it is a bit of a tight window, but again, powerlifting is not a sport that you make money at. It's a hobby. It's all out of pocket. So, and then of course, I'm an independent, so I still have work to do. Yes, I can work from anywhere, as
Hmm.
long as I have good internet connection. I know before when I traveled to South Africa for lifting, I actually went to Europe first to at least get in the same time zone for a couple days.
Hmm.
That kind of worked out and then moved down, but I'm actually traveling there direct. Um, so yeah, you don't want to arrive there the day before. But so a couple days, I should be okay. I'm pretty used to traveling like time zones and things. I kind of have a system down where if I arrive there, I won't try not to go to bed. I'll actually take a good dose of creatine, which
Hmm.
I actually heard is really good at. I've kind of done some reading and research. It's actually really good at giving you good brain cognitivity,
I've heard that. Yeah.
as a temporary fix after that. And it's not really a toxic substance. It's not a banned substance either. And we can kind of like drug testing and powerlifting. It's the even despite the fact it is a hobby sport, that it is drug tested. So a lot of people, I know the question comes up, well, like, are you on steroids and everything? I am not. Everything's natural. I do take a few supplements, but overall, it is a sport that, in theory, I could be tested. I've never been tested, but friends of
Mhm.
mine have, and I also know people that have been tested and just they've been caught with. Um, Sometimes it's kind of innocent, like if
Mm.
you it's regular, therapeutic drugs or whatever, and there's a method. If you do get a prescription, you have to go through a process to make sure it
Yep.
is approved, and you can get a therapeutic exemption. And then there's others more in the kind of open class where it does get a bit competitive, very competitive, where there are a few stakes there in terms of kind of reputation, everything, where a few folks have been thinking they can kind of sneak by on stuff, but eventually they'll get you.
Yeah.
So,
Jeez. So what got you into powerlifting then? Like when did this start? Is this something you've always done, or have you just done it more recently? Like you just picked up some
that's a
weights because you were angry one day?
yeah, that's one way to put it. It's interesting. I grew up on a farm, so I was always pretty, I think, relatively strong
Hmm.
there. And then of course we get into IT, and then this is interesting because I talked a little bit about this at Nordic Summit in the closing keynote.
Yep.
You get into IT, you basically you sit, you start, you're hunched over a computer, you're sitting all day, which is not good. You're not getting up, and you're in the dark, you're working in a basement. So IT is really one of the most kind of like unhealthy occupations I think that are out there. And then so as my when my daughter was young, I realized, okay, I'm getting out of shape. I can't go up a flight of stairs without being out of breath. I didn't want to be another statistic of someone dropping dead, scooping out their laneway for full of snow kind of thing. So I went to a gym, met up with a personal trainer, kind of had that, start program. You get on the machines, you get on the treadmill, you do this and that. And I found it boring. I hated the treadmill. I hated
Hmm.
running, and I hated, yeah, all that cardio stuff. Not a fan. But I really liked the free weights. I really enjoyed that. And then one day I was deadlifting, and one of the other personal trainers walked by and said, "Oh, you're deadlifting quite a bit." And I don't know what it was. And he said, "We're having a fun powerlifting meet. Um, just for fun. It's not really, it's not competitive or whatever. It was
Mhm.
at a kind of a fitness expo kind of thing in the city. So I signed up for it, absolutely fell in love. I thought this is great. I love the competition. Joined up the local association, started volunteering, and then competed, I think later that year in my first official competition. And slowly, kept doing the local meets, kept getting better and better. And then finally, it was probably after, yeah, it was like 5 years, got to the point where I actually was able to qualify for the national and provincials. They had the same qualifying totals, which was kind of a goal that I had set for myself, but it always seemed to be out of reach. And don't let that be a detriment to anybody if is working on something. Like it might seem like an impossible goal, and at the time it did, because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to lift that much ever. And then I got to the point where I did, and I
Mhm.
now it's part of my warm up routines, what I'm doing, there.
Jeez.
And then from there, got to a point where I was actually in 2022 was the first time I got an international team. So competed at the North American Championships, competed in Commonwealths, got to the World Bench Press Championship. I've competed there twice.
Jeez.
And now this is the first time I'm going for the full three lift for World Masters. I did qualify, I did get on the team last year, but got injured. The year before I got on the alternates, which I didn't get to go. So a lot of times, if you get to go or not, depends on who else is signed up for it, where you place in nationals. There's a whole kind of thing. You do have to kind of qualify for it, but then so this is really the top level of competition I can get to for my age and weight class. So it's kind of an
Nice.
opportunity I'm just not going to pass up on.
That's amazing. So do you have, so is that kind of like every competition you're aiming to be one step greater than the last competition you were at? Like, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, powerlifting is a sport where you try to, like, yeah, you can get in competition with others, and I have, but really the person you're trying to beat is your last set of numbers.
Yeah.
So on a day where you get a personal best or anything like that, that's sort of a pretty good feeling. Interesting enough, at the World Bench that was in Norway this spring, I got a personal best on bench, but I still kind of finished kind of the bottom of the barrel. So part of me was happy I got my personal best. And then the flip side, it was like, yeah, but I'm competing at the bottom of the barrel. And then there's that other voice in your head that goes, yeah, dude, you're competing against the best in the world. Just chill already, So
Wow, that is amazing. So, I mean, you mentioned 5 years there. How long have you actually like? When was the year that you walked in that gym for the first time?
I think it was probably 2012. So I've
Okay.
been doing this now for 12, 13 years, 13
Uh-huh.
years. And I started when I was 40. So you can do the math there. So it's interesting because people have asked me in the past, like, don't you wish you started earlier, whatever. I know, but I think if I had started in my 20s, we might be having a very different conversation right now. I might be sitting in a wheelchair or whatever because I know how my 20-year-old brain thought.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful in terms of the lifting and things like that. I see some of these young kids, like both men and women. This is the one thing I love about powerlifting. It is a very inclusive sport,
Mhm.
covers the full range. You see, 14-year-old girls all the way up to, 70, 80-year-old men and
Jeez.
everybody in between. So in that respect, you do have a very like strong people, and it's amazing the things they can do. So I think, when you kind of figure the factor in the weight strength ratio based on gender, there's some mathematics involved in terms of that.
Mhm.
I think, if you want to kind of go by that formula, they're like the women are just as strong as the men in that sense.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of friends yeah, a lot of female powerlifting friends as well. And yeah, it's like I said, great community and yeah, very inclusive.
That's amazing. Well, so I like to talk community because that's a big part of what this show is about.
And
So we'll come to the Power Platform one, but I'm interested because that's essentially two communities. I mean, we're all parts of lots of different communities, but that's two kind of ones that you have been actively involved in a long time. In a long time, by the sounds of things,
yeah.
you definitely have friends in both camps. I know that. How do they compare and contrast? Like, w-
Oh, in
talk me
terms of
through
the
that.
two communities, yeah, it's interesting because they're worlds that don't collide either, right? Kind of
Yes.
a bridge across. Like you'll find a few people that lift or exert, like obviously in our community around the technology side, There are people that are, I mean, I know a lot of folks that go into marathons, they do
Mm.
running. There's a few people that kind of lift weights. Actually, in terms of competitive powerlifters, there's my friend Andrea, um, she's based in Colorado. She met her at Dynamics Con of all places, and she's a competitive powerlifter as well, and she's broken state records in deadlifting. I was actually there a few
Nice.
weeks ago helping her out powerlifting. So in terms of the communities, yeah, they are pretty much separate. Like I said, very little crossover.
Hmm.
But on the flip side, compare and contrast. First off, you have people from all different walks of life, from all over the world, kind of coming together, kind of focused around one particular thing, and then
Hmm.
you become friends. The like, for instance, the powerlifting or the power platform brought you together, but you're friends for other reasons because
Yeah.
there's the people that you like to hang out with. There are people that you can talk to, and in that respect, it's yeah, there is those comparisons in terms of community, knowing that I could go pretty much any in the world, and if I know somebody from either of these communities and say, hey, do you want to grab a coffee or do you want to grab lunch or something? Yeah, someone's there to help you out in that respect. From the other side, because in the power platform community, so in the power lifting community, I have friends with people that are electricians, that are accountants, that work for the government, a lot of people from the military,
Hmm.
those types of things. So you come people from an occupation side from all different parts.
Yeah.
Where if we flip over to the power platform side, I mean, we're pretty much either all developers, consultants, project managers,
Yeah.
makers, whatever. We all kind of coming from the same career. What's interesting though in the power platform communities, when you talk careers and everything, and I was discussing this with some other friends this past weekend about no one went to school saying, or very few people say, I am going to be a business software consultant or a business software developer. No one
Yeah.
decided that in high
No.
school, right? A lot of people, most people ended up here by accident or sort of, just sort of like, how did you end up here? Well, I was doing this. I was working at a company and they implemented it, or
Yeah.
I was a developer. Like I come back from a technology background. I was a developer, a system administrator, and kind of, yeah, fell into this like everybody else. Interesting. I know a lot of people that come from the tourism industry, for example. I had this
Oh,
discussion this
really?
weekend with another one of my friends, and it was like she was saying, "Oh yeah, I used to work for this tour company." I'm like, "Oh great, oh okay, here's another one that came from tourism and hotel management or something like that, right?" So it's just
Hmm.
kind of interesting that we're getting we kind of people come from all walks of life as well
Yeah.
in our community.
Yeah, that's come up on this show many, many times. In fact, last week, no, week before, when I was talking to Joe, I think I said almost exactly word for word the phrase you said just a moment ago, which was that no one chooses to do this. They don't go to university to study Power Platform, Dynamics CRM, any of this. So it is a lot of the people I speak to have come into it in some other way. Like myself, I was essentially I did go into an IT career. I went into business intelligence. I was actually working on that side of things, and that was my first professional sort of chance in IT. I've been around computers as long as I can remember because my dad's been around computers. So there was always computers about. I was always playing with computers. But that was the first chance I got to get into an IT computer career, and that was getting data out of Dynamics CRM. So that was
Yeah.
that was what it was. I was working with SQL, but I was working with getting data from the sales system to help the to generate reports and do all sorts of stuff there. I started naturally from that point, also getting into supporting the CRM itself. I found that was quite enjoyable. And then that naturally fell into extending it. How do I use JavaScript to muck about with this and make it better? And then from there, I went into consultancy, and so I've been doing that now for 14 years. And that's exactly it. I mean, I did go to uni for computer science, but didn't last long there because computer science is a horrible degree to do. It's just or at least where I went. So I went to Edinburgh Uni, and
Mm.
Edinburgh Uni is too theoretical for me. Like it was all about proofs and logic, and
Mm.
when we started doing the equations of circles, I was just like, this has nothing to do with anything I'm ever going to do. I do not care about computer aided design or graphics. I don't need to know how to draw a circle with equations. It makes no odds on what I'm going to do. So I dropped out at that
Yeah.
point. Found my
Yeah.
way back in later on.
Yeah, like my education, it was so my official schooling, I am a computer engineering technologist,
Yeah,
which
cool.
the program I went was literally half hard. I think I say half hardware, half software. So we were not only were we kind of designing the software, but at that time in like assembler code mostly. I know we did a bit of C++ actually.
Hmm.
And but then also we were building the circuit boards and designing that and we're building processors, I think early around the 8086 processor, and
Hmm.
then eventually into the 68,000, the Motorola 68,040, which I think was used in like Amiga or Atari STs at the time. Again, I'm dating myself a little bit, but then we had to build, design the circuit board, do the timing diagrams, do the static RAM, the dynamic RAM,
Hmm.
build parallel ports, serial ports, design all that, basically put it on the circuit board, wire wrap it all. And they were talking, and then even the
Jeez.
placement of the circuits on the board where because of propagation delays and things like that. So it takes like half a microsecond to go from one end of the board to the other. Well, that can affect your whole sequence of things.
Yeah.
And that was a lot. And you talk about like there's math involved. And then with the bootloader programs, we had to write an assembler, and then you write it on a terminal in assembler, and then actually write it to an EEPROM, which is an electronic programmable erasable ROM
Hmm.
on this chip, and then you plug it in, and then you'd hook up your analyzers, and you'd cross your fingers, and you'd hope to God that this thing would actually boot up and run. And then if it didn't, you'd have to debug why didn't it go, and then you'd be okay. I see the problem in my code and the assembler code are based on the signals that were coming from the wire itself.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to put this EEPROM into this little box where it was an ultraviolet light that would erase the EEPROM, and it'd be like 15 minutes. And then finally it would be erased, reprogram it, plug it in, try it again.
Jeez.
And learned a ton, but basically I decided at that point, I said, okay, I do not want to be involved in the hardware. I love doing the software side. Like even writing an assembler was fun. I don't know
Hmm.
if I could do it today, but it was that part was really cool. And so then that was sort of where I gravitated from. It's interesting now because I think in terms of circuit design and all of this, and like I can buy a kit on Amazon and get it assembled in probably like about 15 minutes, and it would be the equivalent computer as what my third year project was today. And then of course it's all, it's all kind of plug and play,
Yeah.
and then even, a lot of the circuits and stuff are all programmable, and you can even simulate it on a machine and stuff. So it was interesting, but it wasn't for me. And then I kind of got into the software side of things, and yeah, did software development for a company that did a material safety data sheet database, and I ended
Okay.
up writing that in. It was actually a database system called Paradox. It
Hmm.
was DOS based, and it's interesting because we spent a lot of time developing it. I actually came in. It was another a guy who developed it. Funny, I say an older guy, but he was probably younger than I am now when I joined that company. Um, and he
Relatively,
said
he was definitely older.
yeah, yeah, relatively he was for sure. And he had developed this, but he did not have any kind of software development training. So it was basically one big ass long function, and with the menus, with the numbering and everything like that. So I was brought in just to support this thing. And then I said, I said, I asked him, I said, would you be terribly offended if I rewrote this? And he goes, well, knock yourself out if you have time. So I basically rewrote it so it was like, much more, the user interface a lot cleaner with the mouse and everything like that. Added some more efficiencies, broke it all down into functions. And, I remember him looking at the code, and he goes, yeah, this is way better than what I wrote. He said, this makes sense. I can it's much easier to debug and everything like that. And it's funny because looking at that now and the amount of time I spent on it, this would be something that I could build on the Power Platform probably in an afternoon. And so much better with so many other features that our customers were asking for
Hmm.
in terms of distribution and the database and the whole nine yards. But I mean, that's what we had at the time, and so that's sort of what I was. Yeah, that's how I got into that, and then eventually ended up in doing some systems administration with a company that implemented Great Plains. So that's where I kind of got introduced a little bit on the biz app side because that
Hmm.
was before Great Plains got bought by Microsoft. I learned how to do dexterity programming, which I found out the other day. That's a skill that if I'd kept up is very valuable. Again, we talked, I think, before about Great Plains. I think we talked about before we got on the thing about Great Plains still being alive. It's kind of like the COBOL programmers of old around
Yeah.
Y2K. If you're a dexterity programmer, I think there's still a market there for those folks. And I did
Yeah.
that, and then eventually got to a point where someone, a colleague of mine, um, he said, "Hey, this is a new thing that Microsoft is putting out. It's called Microsoft Business Solutions Customer Relationship Management version 1." And he threw a stack of CDs on my desk, and I still have them around here somewhere. And so I spun up a few Windows NT virtual machines, got it all installed, an SQL server and the whole bit, and just
Hmm.
started playing around with it. And like, this is pretty cool. It was version 1, didn't do too much in terms of extensibility. Like you could add JavaScript to drop down lists, and that was about it. You
Oh
couldn't
wow, it
add
had JavaScript
you
back then though. That's
very limited,
right.
and you couldn't add custom entities. You were limited in the number of fields that you could add. So a lot of times the
Jeez.
contact table you would use up your allocation of fields pretty quickly. So yeah, it wasn't until version 3 came around where you actually add your custom tables and things and
Right.
relationships that it's finally getting somewhere. And then, of course, version 4, then I really got into what we call the XRM side of things. We're
Yeah.
building unique line of business applications on top of this platform. So, really, power apps before they're even called power apps,
Yeah.
effectively model driven apps. And then, yeah, we'd have to do some custom interfaces with JavaScript and things like that. So, funny how, full circle now we're building apps on React on top of the Power Platform.
Yes.
So we were doing stuff with JavaScript and HTML before to get around things. So it's interesting just seeing how the whole platform has evolved over the years and where it's come from. And then looking at something like Dataverse, and yeah, I think Dataverse is an amazing system,
Hmm.
data service, but there are still bodies buried in there from version 1 CRM. If you look hard enough, you can find them in a few little oddities, like why do we have activity pointers? And it's like, well, that goes back to the Outlook integration from CRM version 1, and it's just been there for so long.
Jeez.
We've never been able to fix it or kind of move on with the time. So yeah, interesting times for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I find with CRM Power Platform, having the history helps. Some of the stuff that we develop in plugins, and especially when you're working with the web service, there's things in there that you know the history of. So like someone the other day actually asked me about the set status message. I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing we used to have. You don't need to use it anymore. You can just update the table directly. But that
Yeah,
was a thing. It's like, oh yeah, I remember when we actually had to write code specifically only to change status. Not even like it was mental that we had to do that at the time. I don't know why. You probably actually have more of a background as to why that existed.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure why or whatever, but I knew the question did come up the other day as well. Someone was trying to use classic workflows, and they were just trying to update the status
Yeah,
field, and it wasn't working. And like, no, you need to actually run this set status command instead.
yeah.
And they're like, no, 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 we're positive we were able to do it. Like, maybe, but I don't think so. Like in Flow, you can do it, but probably not anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, workflows. I actually I still like workflow. I know that people like we've got Power Automate flows and we're not supposed to be using workflows, but workflows still solve a problem that I find
Yeah,
is useful.
just because they run synchronously, right?
Yes.
And they can operate on like date and currency fields that the low code plugins can't do.
Yeah.
So until like they can't kill off that feature. Well, it's we talk about killing off features. You can't really kill off features like that because they serve a need. And then the
Yeah.
other thing too is shutting them off is not like it's it features don't get shut off. Most time they just get abandoned.
Yeah.
So they're there. You can still use them. They're not going to be enhanced. They're not going to be changed. The only time they'll change the code if there's a potential security issue,
Hmm.
maybe. Very few times we've seen deprecated. I think we've seen like dialogues were deprecated because the UX changed. This is like going back 5 or 6 years at least or more.
Yep.
Um, but a few other things, like when they say deprecated, that means abandoned. Very rarely we see stuff deleted. So I think we're going to see classic workflows probably for a while. In the last project, I actually used them for a couple things because I needed that synchronous update.
Yeah.
and it just didn't make sense to write a plugin. This was like a quick and easy way to just update a field
Yeah.
using classic workflows. So
Yeah.
still a thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this is what I like to talk to people about. Anyone that's new to the Power Platform, anyone that I'm mentoring, anyone I'm working with, I always try to get them to think of it. It is a platform. There is a toolbox there. Understand the different tools because there's lots and lots of different ways to solve problems in the Power Platform. There's so many these days, so many more than certainly version one and going up. And nowadays, it's there's just so many ways to skin that cat, and
Mhm.
knowing the benefits of different ways can really, really help. Because exactly that, a workflow can be a really useful thing if you just literally need to update another field based on one other field changing. If that's all you have to do, you don't need a plugin to do that. You can absolutely do that,
Yeah.
and don't go near the low code plugins yet. They're not ready for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And then the thing is too, like Dataverse, like I wrote a blog post a few weeks ago, kind of like the I think 5 forgotten features of Dataverse. Of course, I did, we talked about classic workflows, because a lot of people that are new to the Power
Yeah,
Platform, they're coming in from, especially now from the Copilot Studio side. So M365 folks that are building agents in Copilot Studio,
yeah,
oh, well, we need to connect to Dataverse as a data store. They're beginning to get into this and they're discovering, ooh, there's like model driven. Oh, well, even the Canvas app folks that came from SharePoint coming in, oh, model driven apps, is that new? Like, oh, a little pat in the head. No. Like these have been around for, these are way before Canvas apps were even a
yeah.
thing. But then there's so many things that people just don't realize that exist within Dataverse or part of the Power Platform.
Hmm.
The fact that there's a very tight integration to Exchange that you don't even have to use Power Automate for. That was one of the things that I actually got a lot of feedback on that blog post going, oh, tell us more about this. We didn't realize this was a thing. We were just, sending emails out using Power Automate. Like, no, you can actually send emails directly through Dataverse through Exchange, and the setup's pretty easy. It means a few different things. So it's just these things, like I said, forgotten features that we just kind of forgotten ourselves, or people don't know about, that
Yeah.
could probably get them out of a bind pretty quickly in some projects.
The relationship one. So I read that, and it was the relationship one that I know about, and I've told a few other people about. So setting the defaults when you create a new record. Does that actually work though? Because I tried to do that only if I think a couple of months ago, and it didn't seem to work in my environment. So
Oh,
I just
the
figured,
field the field mapping.
yeah, field mapping. So the default,
Yeah,
it just didn't
it
seem to
does.
work.
It does work, but it only works one way, and it's only on creation of the record. So if you
Hmm.
create an account and then you create a corresponding contact from within the context of the account through a subgrid, for example,
Hmm.
then it should copy over those field values. But if you update anything, it won't roll down. It won't go the other way.
Yeah.
It's very nuanced in how it works. I'm surprised if it didn't work for you. Like it works, still works for me when I try it, but it is one of those things that it's not in the new interfaces.
Yeah. It's
I don't
pretty
know. Who
hard to get
knows?
to nowadays. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
actually,
yeah,
they've
yeah.
really hidden it
Exactly.
away.
You have to know about it to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I have to go and test it again because there's still a few little things where that is quite useful, and I still find that I have to go to JavaScript to do that kind of defaulting on a form, because that's what it's really good for. Is just I want to create a new form and I want a field to be defaulted because it's come from another record, and that's exactly what it does. Um, but yeah, it wasn't working at the time, so I ended up falling back to JavaScript to do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It doesn't matter because we're just going to tell the Copilot agent to do all this stuff, and it's going to talk to the Dataverse MCP, and yeah, it'll just all be handled for us. So we don't even need to worry about it.
that's yeah, that's the nightmare of the future.
Like, no, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to leave AI for now. I'm going to move on to a different one because out of all of this that we've talked about so far, you've not mentioned once ADX Studio or Power Pages, Power Portal, and I know a lot of people know you from that world. So where does that fit into the story?
That's interesting. Well, in terms of where it fits in the story today, I mean, Power Pages is the platform, that part of the Power Platform to include your external stakeholders into your
Mhm.
whole business ecosystem. So it's a way to, expose Dataverse in a safe and secure manner. So, users can go to a web page, they can upload orders, they can update cases, they can sign up for new memberships if they're a volunteer, they can get new assignments. And in terms of the user context, we don't need a unique license assigned to their name
Mhm.
specifically. We have a whole bunch of page views, authenticated and unauthenticated page views to get them into, basically into Dataverse. Or you could even create a Power Pages website for your own internal users, like HR scenarios where building a Power App is probably really overkill if you're just collecting information and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's where, it sits in the platform, very important. I think going forward, it's even going to be more important because we're going to need a foundation or a platform to serve agents, especially to our external users. So it's less and less forms and views, but interacting with an actual agent somewhere.
Oh.
And those users aren't necessarily going to be accessing it through the M365 Copilot because that's for your own internal use.
Hmm.
So how do they get access? They're going to go to a web page and it's going to be that canvas where they're going to interact with these agents. And Power Pages, I believe, is going to be the basically the canvas or the holding pen for all that. Again, talking back to Dataverse, in terms of the technology and how it sits. Again, I think we're seeing a lot of it. We touched on a little bit earlier about React-based apps. I see Power Pages, they are in preview now, single page applications. We've seen
Hmm.
code apps. We've seen generative pages. And then, I know there's other stuff coming around this. So again, I think we're beginning to see the shift where low code is not going away, but low code is definitely changing.
Yeah.
Low code, the heard a really good saying the other day, a natural language is the purest form of low code. And when it comes to Power Pages, that's just as true as it is for Power Apps. This is how we're going to be building applications on top of that. So, like I said, Power Pages is a great future, is a great thing to kind of get into, get head wrapped around. Seems to always be plenty of work. I'm getting pinged all the time for Power Pages, whether it's training or helping out companies implement their sites, kind of thing.
Hmm.
The whole history behind it is actually pretty fascinating. It came from, as you mentioned, ADX Studio. So Power Pages is one of these things in the Power Platform where it's actually was an acquisition by Microsoft, and that's very rare in the Power Platform. I think we look at Field Service was another one, came from FieldPoint originally, but
Hmm.
everything else was built relatively organically within the Power Platform. Microsoft had some other acquisitions on Marketing Pilot,
Hmm.
that gamification thing, and they all kind of disappeared and went away.
Yeah.
Parature was another one. It was a customer support site that Microsoft kind of bought and incorporated the customers into the Power Platform. The technology itself, I'm really not sure if anything exists in the Power Platform anymore.
Hmm.
So ADX Studio, where it all started, it was originally the company based in Saskatchewan, and I didn't work there, so I don't know the history. It's the other Nick from Canada, Nick Hayduke, who did work there, who probably has a little bit more solid grasp on the history. But at the end of the day, they were my understanding, and feel free anybody out there listening to correct me. They were a software development company. They were contracted to build a website. And at those days, a lot of companies building websites would build their own content management systems, their own CMSs. They wouldn't rely on WordPress or
Yeah.
Sitecore or some of these other ones. They would build their own. So they
Hmm.
were a Microsoft shop, a .NET shop. They built their content management system on top of SQL Server, a way to so the users could go in there, update the SQL tables for the web pages and all this stuff and kind of display their websites on Internet Information Services. I know the story that I was told by me, and I'm trying to think who actually told me the story, but of course, Microsoft Dynamics CRM version 3 or 4 came out, and they looked at it and they go, "Wow, we can add our own tables, we can do all this customization."
Hmm.
And then they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually take our CMS system and rewrite it within Dynamics CRM? And I think it was Shan MacArthur who was at Microsoft. He's now since retired, but he basically locked himself in a room and basically converted their CMS site into CRM, and then were able to update stuff with records in CRM that would update their web portal, and then even got to the point where they could actually take a model-driven form and a model-driven view and then render that on the websites as well.
Yeah.
And so that was ADX Studio Portals. I remember working with version 5 and 6, and then got into version 7. And so how I got into it, we had a project where the company I was running, we actually hired someone else to do that part. So, but then that I think either the consultant left or something, so I was kind of left holding the bag a little bit. So I had to learn a little bit more on the development side. And at that time, you could create your own custom ASPX pages
Hmm.
directly and load them and connect. And then eventually I got into this other big project where I had to learn all the ins and outs of the configuration side. So that's how I built up my own knowledge. And I like to write things down. So if I'm learning something, I hate to relearn it 6 months later.
Yeah.
And at this also the same time, my boss, it was a bigger consulting company we were working in, said, okay, everybody, we want everybody to do blogs. The marketing wants us to write blogs. So I started writing a blog based on everything I was learning about configuring ADX Studio, like how to install it, how the forms worked, how Liquid
Yeah.
worked for a little bit. And then that sort of began to steamroll, and then was told by, kind of nominated in the MVP program, talked to the CPM at the time, said, your blog posts are great. Take them off the corporate site and put them on your own personal site. So that's how I started my blog, and then started putting in sessions to present on ADX Studio portals, and presented. The very first time I presented in a big conference was the CRM Summit in Tampa in 2016,
Oh, wow.
and had a full room, went way over time. I was running out of time, and I still had 2/3 of the presentation and demo left, like things you learn, right? And then all of a sudden, around, it was actually was the no was that time, or it might even be, it was around that time that Microsoft, it was probably a bit before they did that, but they bought ADX Studio.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there was actually before that. So by that point, Microsoft owned ADX Studio. They were going to rebrand it as Dynamic
Dynamics Portal.
CRM on Dynamic CRM Online Portals.
Hmm.
And it was never meant to be its own product. It was meant to be like an add-on, a feature to Dynamics 365, and then eventually Power. Then the other thing they did eventually was, oh, you can actually create a portal but run it on just regular Dataverse. That came a few years later. So then it became Power Apps portals, and then again a feature. And then it was interesting, around that time I was actually it was 20, I'm trying to go the years now, 2021. So we're already into and then I was doing a lot of blog posts and presentations about portals, involved in portal projects, building different things,
Hmm.
different customers, making Liquid sing and dance, do things that they probably never imagined it was supposed to do. And then I remember getting, I got contacted by someone within Microsoft that said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to help do the documentation around Power Apps portals." And I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to join Microsoft. But then you go through the interview process, and I thought it was a great opportunity, might not come again. So joined Microsoft, and probably the first month I was there, the very, one of the meetings, they said, "Oh, by the way, we're renaming Power Apps portals to Power Pages." And I'm like, well, that name kind of sucks. Wouldn't it, wouldn't Power Portals be better? Like, oh no, we don't want to use portals. We want to make this more of a web development platform kind of thing, more
Hmm.
than just a portal. You can build websites. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure you're going to compete with Wix and WordPress for just pure CMS side. And I
Yeah.
still believe that there's right tool for the right job, and
Hmm.
Power Pages isn't it for that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But then anyways, yeah, so basically, but I also was kind of tasked with, okay, we need to create documentation around the new Power Pages. Which this is an interesting thing about internal. Like, I think I can say this now, it's been a few years, but how things get renamed and rebranded. And I remember being in a meeting with marketing people, and first off, when they said, "Oh, we're gonna have Power Pages," to me it was like, cool. To be the way they made it sound is like they completely are rewriting it from the ground up. So all of these kind of things that we dealt with that were struggles were going to go away, and we're kind
Hmm.
of going to build this right. And then I started looking at the code and looking at the early versions, and I'm like, this is still Power Apps portals. The only thing you've added is a new kind of designer. Um, excuse me. And they're like, and then I was in this team with marketing, and I'm like, okay, so Power Pages is just really Power Apps portals, but you have a new editor. That's all there is to it. Oh no, 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 no! It's a complete new product, and this, like, but it's not. It's the same thing. No, 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 no. And so I was trying to pitch. I said, okay, then in terms of the documentation, we should just start going through and renaming Power Apps portals into Power Pages. But no, no, no. We need to keep the Power Apps portals documentation. We need to keep that separate, because that's a separate product, and Power Pages in preview. So we want to make sure our existing customers and blah blah. I said the existing customers are going to freak out, because I said, you people within Microsoft, you don't understand the impact that a name change has out in the field. And I kind of got the little tap in the head. No, 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 we know better. And they didn't, because sure enough, as soon as Power Pages was announced, it was like, the questions are coming up. Oh, we're going to hold off on our Power Apps Portals project because Power Pages is coming in the fall.
Hmm.
And then Microsoft, no, 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 it's the same. Oh, but no, it's not the same, but it is. Oh, shoot. And then when the money got on the table, so then I had to revamp all of the docs to kind of say, oh, yeah, Power Pages is basically Power Apps Portals. Your investment in Power Apps Portals is fine, and you're moving to Power Pages. And anyways, don't get me wrong, I love the people at Microsoft. Great experiences there, very smart people. Learned how the sausage was made. But at the end of the day, Power Pages really is, again, that evolution, and you can
Yeah.
still find traces of ADX in there. Of course, they've modified this. They've done a lot. They're the new enhanced data models and
Hmm.
all this other thing. So really, it is still, um, yeah, it's still ADX. So at the end of the day, Power Pages is still ADX, which is became Power Apps Portals and everything like that. So it was a good time. I was actually, in a sense, kind of getting bored. I really wanted to get back out in the field, and a few incidents along the way kind of made me realize that. Had some opportunities to work on some really cool projects outside of Microsoft that were kind
Hmm.
of put in front of my face. Working with the product team directly, they're showing me some new stuff, and they're like, "Well, what do you think?" And there's some features. I'm not going to point out which ones, but they're saying we're not getting a lot of uptick right now. Do you know why? And I'm like, guys, I love the feature, but until I actually get my hands into a real project using this, that's when
Yeah.
I'm really going to get the experience. So a few things like that. So I decided, and I'm an independent spirit, or whatever you want to call it. Like working for myself, so I went out back to in the independent world. Not to say I wouldn't go back to Microsoft if the
Hmm.
right role appeared, but I don't know if the right role exists for me. It
Yeah.
doesn't right now, I don't think. But anyways, so I was back being independent, implementing portals, helping on projects. Just kind of finished a project. Well, the project is always ongoing, but the core part of it that I worked on was for the Norwegian Red Cross for a volunteer portal. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
Cool.
Probably one of the best working teams that I've worked with in terms of the implementation team. It was a lot of fun. I learned a ton. It was interesting being on a 6 hour different time zone than them, but they were very accommodating. They had the stand-ups around the time where I woke up. A
Yep.
few times I had to get up early for meetings, but it was really good. And now working on a few other new exciting projects as well. I can't really talk too much about it, but again, some of it Power Platform related, some of it Power Pages related, and utilizing this knowledge. And of course, learning so much over the last few months, because as much as we take all this experiences with us, also understanding this is probably the biggest change I have seen within the Power Platform in my career in terms of Copilot Studio and building agents and apps and things like this. Um, the AI aspects to it, like even writing liquid code, for example, in Visual Studio Code, the GitHub Copilot, like you can take away so many of the tools and things I use. You're going to have a very, very hard time tearing that tool out of my hand because it's just so useful in what it can do. And then even on the Copilot Studio side, still kind of getting my head wrapped around it. I went through the Agent Academy that the
Hmm.
advocates team put together, which I thought was amazing. And and then also looking outside of Microsoft, what other companies are doing with agents and AI and things, and just it's an exciting time to be learning.
Yeah.
And I'm also not too nervous about losing my job because there's just so much that we need people with experience and just the
Yeah.
whole thought process around to put all this stuff together. What's cool is we can do it with all these tools, we can do it a lot faster.
Yeah.
And because we can do it faster, all of our customers always had that big laundry list, right? That we're always cutting off, and we don't have the time or budget to do these things. Well, guess what? Now we do. Those lists can be a little bit longer. We can start delivering more value to our customers.
Yeah.
Some people might not agree with me on that, but I think that there's going to be still, for the foreseeable future, as long as you embrace the new technology one way or the other, like you don't have to go full all in on the Kool-Aid. I certainly don't.
Hmm.
Microsoft definitely has a few stinkers floating around that have the name Copilot on it. But overall, it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, no, it's I've dipped my toe into AI stuff. I definitely use all the tools from a development perspective because they're useful. They're very, very
Yeah.
useful.
Yes.
But at the same time, I do find that because I have the experience, I can make them more useful. I worry about the people that pick them up and start making stuff, and it just throws code at the editor, and something will work, but ultimately what you end up with is going to be a bit of a mess. So that's something I've noticed. Is I saw something the other day on LinkedIn. There was talk of an AI code fixer role that had come in. I think that part of there's two things, like this idea that suddenly we're going to be all like AI is going to get rid of all our jobs. No, I think that the productivity will help, exactly as you say. It's going to free up a little bit more space to do more stuff. So basically it's like when they take a motorway and they add another 2 lanes on to alleviate traffic. It helps for a little while, and then suddenly the motorway's filled up again. So
Yes,
we're just going to be
absolutely.
we're going to be in that same position. But yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of people who use it to build all sorts of stuff. Like you see so many. I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and especially around business and entrepreneurship because it's interesting. And there's so many people talk about, oh, I can build all of these things, these software as a service things with AI, and I build them so quickly now, and I get them out there, and I'm just like, yeah, they're not secure. They're definitely not
No.
secure. How performant are they going to be? But ultimately, it doesn't matter at that stage, because at that stage, you're proving the concept and you're getting people on board, and then someone else will come along and fix it later on, and that someone else will be like a you or a me who actually understands the tech and can go and do something a little bit better with it.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
it's fascinating to see what's happening out there, and I've got this vision in my head, and I think a lot of this is how we work with especially with things like AI, where it's difficult to really conceptualize where we're going to be, even in a couple of years, based on what's happened in the last couple of years. But you kind of can go to things like books and films, and in that world, AI has lots of interesting sort of visions. There's the Matrix one where we build all these AI robots, they rebel against us, we end up with two separate societies, and then we end up fighting each other, and then they basically use us as batteries. So that's one way. You've got the sort of Skynet one where the AI basically decides, no, humans need to go away because we're trying to keep the world healthier. Let's get rid of the humans, which is, terrifying thought. But then I think there's the other one, which is something like Idiocracy. It has nothing to do with AI, but in that future, I think it's more compelling if you're a cynic like I am. In that world, have you seen the film Idiocracy?
I don't think so. No.
Ah, it's a great film. You should go and watch it.
Okay.
It's early 2000s,
Okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
Is it Owen Wilson? It's relative, like if you know it, you know it. It's definitely worth watching. But it's this sort of this dystopian future vision where this guy ends up waking up in the future, kind of like Futurama setup.
Right.
And when he wakes up, it turns out he's the smartest person on the planet, and he's got an IQ of like 101, like an average, literally an average of our time, wakes up, and everyone else on the entire planet is down at a level sort of 60, because basically over the years. They've got this marketing and corporations have taken over, and they've basically just dumbed the entire population down so that this guy is now the smartest person anywhere. They're all looking to him like he's this amazing genius. It's just such a good film. And that's what I see more of is I worry more about things like Facebook and Google and I mean, to an extent, Microsoft controlling the future. But it's not the AI that worries me. It's actually the corporations and that sort of centralized power. But that's a whole different topic, and we're getting towards the end of the hour.
We're really going down the rabbit hole here with that like that. But
That's
yeah,
definitely
I
a
don't know.
pub chat at some point in the future.
Yeah, to me, I don't know. I hope for a future where humans are still doing stuff. I see sort of, I realize like Star Wars talks about global conflict and whatever, right? But just having a C-3PO or an R2-D2 coming around and helping me out, but still. They're the I'm in control. We're still the humans are still the masters, and the robots are our faithful servants, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the Star Wars sort of concept of tech is that it's a world where tech is just part of things. It's not pristine. It's a workhorse. It's a tool, and that is something you see throughout the Star Wars films. Is very much. None of the tech is ever pristine. It's all very much battered and bruised, but still very functional. So there's definitely
fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy.
yes, exactly. Right. Well, that has been a thoroughly thoroughly enjoyable 50 something minutes there. I like to finish off with rapid fire questions. So I've got a few of those
Sure.
we'll go through and then we will finish there. This has been really, really interesting. Been on some interesting journeys there. All right. So rapid fire questions. I'm going to start and jump in. So favorite Power Platform service?
I have to say, as much as I know I'm a Power Pages guy, but Power Automate. Um, it to me, if I had Power Automate 15 years ago doing some of these XRM apps, we could have achieved a lot of things that we really struggled with.
Yeah.
I know Power Automate these days gets a little bit of a bad rap, and everybody's kind of looking more to agentic flows and or agentic processes, but still, to me, every project I've been on, Power Automate has been integral. And to
The
me, it
workhorse.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it doesn't get the credit it deserves. And I think definitely Power Automate is, yeah, would be my favorite out of everything.
That's That's a very valid point, and it doesn't actually come up that often in this question, but I agree 100%. I love Power Automate. I use it extensively in things, but I also know where the limits are, and I think that's the
Mhm.
important part, and that's why I think it
Yeah.
gets a bad rep because so many people use it badly. But it is such a good thing.
Yeah.
Favorite conference?
Oh, easy. Dynamics Minds, hands down. 100%. And don't get me wrong, I love a lot of the other conferences. I'm unfortunately I missed European Power Platform Conference this year. That was always one of my favorites.
Hmm.
In terms of when we talk about conferences, we're always kind of always talking about two things about, I would say the community conferences. I was just at Nordic Summit a few days ago. Again, I love Nordic Summit. I've been at every single one. Um, and I look at some of the other ones around that, like Color Cloud, for example, Scottish Summit. This is where the community really comes together and
Yeah.
gels very well. Look at Talon is another one that I was fortunate enough to go to the first time this past year. I just love all these community ones. And then in terms of there's the big paid conferences, like the ones where people pay big money to go to. Things like European Power Platform Conference was good because it started like what I like about EPPC was the first big, it was 500 people. That was right after the pandemic. That was the first time I had traveled
Right.
overseas in a couple years. I remember being the first time I did a presentation in front of people in probably 2 years. I just remember seeing the faces and everything, and I know the first thing came out of my mouth is, "Isn't it great that we're all here in person?" Very powerful.
Yeah.
And the organizers as well, like they treat the speakers very well and things like that. Of course, I'm going to the Power Platform Community Conference. Again, a great conference. That's your that's your whole US vibe and everything like that in there. Of course, all the Microsoft people will be there.
Hmm.
Vegas is not exactly my favorite city in the world. Maybe it's the small town boy coming out in me, but just the flashing lights, it's just an
Yeah.
assault on the senses, really. But the conference is great. Of course, the community is great. And then the other one that I really liked, I enjoyed this year as well, Dynamics Con. It's fairly only a few years now, but
Mm-hmm.
they try to really do a good community. But at the end of the day, if I was told that no, Nick, you're only allowed to go to one conference and that's it, that's all you get to go to, Dynamics Minds.
I'm gonna have
And
to make my way there. I've not managed to go
the
there yet, but so many people have said that.
yeah, it's just because it's there. It is there's a community conferences. There's good other learning conferences. There it is like a festival. You're in a hotel or a couple hotels connected together by the sea, so the scenery and everything like that. But it's also from a community building point of view. I've gone to a lot of the U.S. conferences, and everybody kind of scatters for dinners everywhere. Some U.S. is very much, oh, we're having dinner with a client. What are they to do? It's like, well,
Yeah.
call the client, have a Teams meeting in 2 weeks, like the Europeans do, right? Um, so, but a lot of these things it kind of spreads. But they have the meals, they have the festivals, they have the parties, and then of course the content as well. It's covering the Power Platform and just their keynotes. There's a unique side to it. Like you have to experience it at some point, and then you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. And I definitely will be going again this spring. I'm excited already to see folks there. So
Cool.
yeah, that was an easy one, and I know I rambled on and giving shout outs to all the other ones. And of course, I also have to say Canadian Power Platform Summit. Call it
Yep.
Summit, yeah. CPPS happening the weekend before MVP Summit in Vancouver. We're going to be putting out tickets soon. Our call for submissions has wrapped up. We are going. I just finished my evaluation, and it's like talk about Sophie's Choice. You got like I think over to about 200 sessions, and we only have so many slots because in the
Yeah.
Microsoft facilities that we have, it's sort of like okay, I wanna have like more days so we can accommodate people because these sessions are so good,
Yeah.
and I know they're not gonna we're not gonna have room for them. So, anyways, but yeah,
I'm gonna have to get you on for a second one because there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk to you more about there.
okay, okay.
Last music you can remember listening to.
Last music, what did I do? So last music, I think the song was "Rock You Like a Hurricane."
Ah,
By
nice.
um,
That's a
that
good
was
song.
on that was in my ears this morning working out at the gym. Um,
Nice.
I have a whole mix basically,
Hmm.
and for certain things I was deadlifting needed a bit of a power ballad to really kind of get me ramped up. I listen to a lot of like 80s heavy metal. I like music from all eras.
Hmm.
Special shout out to someone. I'm listening to System of a Down because someone told me that was their
Good.
favorite band, and it's been a while since I listened to them, so that kind of inspired me to kind of go back and listen to that group as well. So
My first podcast, my first MP3 player. So this was at the time of the iPod, but I didn't have an iPod. I had the
yeah,
iRiver. Loved that thing. I still have it actually, but I had System of a Down on that, the Toxicity album, and I listened to that thing on repeat. I still listen to it. I love it. It's absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the last concert I went to was Green Day. Actually, I went with my daughter.
Ah,
This
nice.
was this summer at a festival here in Ottawa, and it's like, yeah, these guys are still rocking it. Yeah, so good.
Oh yeah, definitely. Excellent. Podcasts or TV?
Podcasts.
Cool. If you had
Yep.
2 hours with no other responsibility, what would you do?
With no other responsibilities, what would I do? Taking gym out of the equation, because I think for me, it's a responsibility for my own mental health more than anything. But if I don't, because I do have a lot of stuff on the go with work and of course community work and everything like
Hmm.
that. But if I have a stretch of time that I really just want to put my brain in neutral, I will try to read or
Hmm.
I will try to play Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo Switch.
Nice.
I'm not a big gamer, but there's certain games that really get into, and like I played Breath of the Wild
Hmm.
and finished it, and it was one of the first big games I'd finished in a while. I'm going through Tears of the Kingdom right now. I think I'm about three-quarters of the way through. I just every so often, if I have a stretch, and I'll just sort of get into it and just immerse myself in an open world play, and just yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I love computer games. I play quite a few. uh, Books or audiobooks?
hmm. I like I like them both. I like books for like I said, if I'm gonna sit down and relax, I always try to read more books because every time I get into a good fiction book, I'm like, okay, why don't I read more? This is so pleasurable.
Yeah.
But the audiobooks, I typically, if I'm listening to audiobooks, unless I'm going on a long road trip, then we might, with the family, we might throw on a kind of a more fiction audiobook. But in terms of audiobooks, I'll listen to a lot of nonfiction
Hmm.
audiobooks, especially going to the
Yeah.
gym and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I'm currently listening now to Think and Grow Rich
Yeah. Good one.
as the
Yep.
audiobook version. It's interesting because it was written in 1937.
Yep.
So, if you read that book in verbatim, just know that radio advertising's the future, Reese. Print advertising's out. But but
it's it
overall,
is it is an interesting one there. There's some really
yeah.
interesting
But
bits in there to take out. But yeah, you have
yeah,
to
but a
distill
lot
it.
of the core story and the core methods and stuff they talk about, it's still very relevant today, and you can
Yeah.
apply that, especially when you're kind of transferring things. So yeah, I would say, to answer that question truthfully, I'd say nonfiction for audio, and then for fiction books, just sitting down. And actually, weirdly enough, I've gone back to reading books on paper or books on paper, paper books. I
Yeah, I know
was
what
I
you
was
mean.
using I was reading my iPad,
Hmm.
and I just found that it was so distracting. It was easy to pop over to LinkedIn, easy to pop over
Yeah.
to Facebook and get sucked down there. So it's interesting. I'm reading right now, All Systems Red, which
Ah, okay.
it actually turned into a series on Apple called Murderbot,
Ah,
which
cool.
was
That's in
oh,
my
I don't know if
list to
you've seen.
watch.
Oh, it's amazing. It's one of those really cool series. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. That's very nice. Last question. Glass half full or half empty?
Half full. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to be half full. And yeah, that's there's you should try your best to choose to be happy. Sometimes it's very hard, and sometimes you got to look at the blessings, the privileges. And I do try to remind myself I do live a very blessed life with the friends and family I have around me, the ability for me to travel and meet new people and do what I do and have a job that I absolutely love,
Yeah.
and a career that I love and everything like that. So yeah, glass is definitely is yeah, half full.
Wonderful. On that note, we shall finish there. We're going to roll the outro. Uh, Nick, been a fascinating to catch up with you on this, and I'll definitely see you at some conference in the future. Probably not, because the next one I'm going to is South Coast Summit, but I think that actually collides with your
It
powerlifting.
it does. I
It
know. I
does.
wanted to go, and I actually, started submitting sessions, and I started looking at the dates, and like, shoot, this isn't gonna work. It's
Yeah.
like, so I kind of backed off on that, and like, okay, this is too bad because I always wanted. It's funny. I've never gone to South Coast Summit.
Oh, really?
I was supposed to go in 2021,
Mhm.
but of course, if you, I don't know if you saw in the news, there was a pandemic or something happening around then,
There was
so
some horrible
some
sneezing fit going on. Yeah.
something some kind of people with runny noses and whatever else. I know that I was supposed to go to South Coast Summit, but in order for me to go for that with that 2 day conference, I would have had to fly in a week ahead and gone into isolation
Jeez.
before I would have been allowed to even go. And then when I went back home, I would have like it was just sort of like yeah, no, and it was just because like, the Canada and the vaccines is like, oh yeah, you can mix and match. It's cool. And the UK was like, no, you can't. That's not cool. So it doesn't count. Like, so it was all shenanigans like that. So, anyways, I do hope to go to hopefully, well, depending on, I know it's an alternate every 2 years with
Scottish
Scottish.
Summit, yeah.
So hopefully next time.
Well, I'll
So
definitely see you at Scottish Summit next year then. Hopefully, I'll see you at something else, maybe even Dynamics Mind, if I can manage to get my wife to agree to it.
you just tell your wife, I'm going out for milk. I'll be back soon. She won't even know you're gone. And then and if she calls, like we'll just say, oh yeah, yeah, no, I'm almost home. Just don't worry about it. Yeah, just go to bed. I'll be quiet.
I love
Oh,
it.
I got up early. Yeah.
I'll tell her that you told me that then.
Okay, fair enough. She can
All
call
right.
me.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching today as well. And I will see everyone else next time. Good night.
All right. See you, Reese.